But I want to express to you that this is much higher ground you're standing on when you use these tools and you use them the right way. Um, this is a clear count for treason. See, the articles in this peace treaty are the basis for your counterclaim, because you don't want to just go into court saying you can't do this to me because I have a treaty and this is my status and my standing. You also have to do your mandatory counterclaim. And whoever's bringing those charges against you, you charge them based off of these treaty violations. And that's really going to open up the doors to where they have to sit there and evaluate, do they want to move forward with this thing, or do they want, because if they move forward with it, it's clearly an international case, and it really has to be held before a tribunal. There's no way they can move forward if your counterclaim is based off of international human rights violations, treaty-based violations, and it's based off the law of nations. There would have to be someone who has the proper jurisdiction and standing to hear those matters. I want to revisit this because I don't want to underemphasize the importance of filing a counterclaim. And that's why they call it mandatory counterclaim. I think it's called that in the Rules of Civil Procedure 12. When you file your counterclaim, then that force is, especially if you file your counterclaim and you're using um, international instruments such as your treaty or the Declaration of Rights of Independence, which is also, as I said before, can be used as a charging instrument. You know, when you file your counterclaim, which they have to allow you to file, then that forces them to have to revisit the jurisdiction issue because they know that they have to make a determination on your counterclaim. Okay? So I'm thinking if you do this the right way, you will get your case dismissed or thrown out. Now, of course, this is if somebody's bringing a case against you. So on that note, I wanted to mention a couple of other instruments that I'll also make available on thctrust.org for you to download. Instruments that you also may want to read over, accept for value, and make it a part of your law and your protections that you have filed into the record jacket and into the public record to establish your rights and your law of who you are. And because remember, all these declarations, these instruments, they're charging instruments. So this one that I have on the screen now is the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, and this is also considered a treaty. It has the status of a treaty. Covenants are also considered treaties. Treaties are the highest form of law. And I'm just going to read a couple of these to you, ones that are important that you may be able to use as your counterclaim. Article 8, no one shall be held in slavery. Slavery and the slave trade in all their forms shall be prohibited. Slavery is enforced contracts. That's a form of slavery. That can be a violation of your rights. That can be the basis for a counterclaim. No one shall be held in servitude. No one shall be required to perform forced or compulsory labor. Article 9. Everyone has the right to liberty and security of person. That means having security of your person means not being locked up. No one shall be subjected to arbitrary arrest or detention. No one shall be deprived of his liberty except on such grounds and in accordance with such procedure as are established by law. So now, if you were taken into custody based off of some statutory law, and now it's before the court, and you're a jurisdiction, and everything else has been established and has been proven that statutory codes and things don't apply, now in your counterclaim, you have a charge under Article 9. You can charge someone. Everyone has the right to liberty and security of person. No one shall be subjected to arbitrary arrest or detention. Article 9, Section 4. Anyone who is deprived of his liberty by arrest or detention shall be entitled to take proceedings before a court, in order that the court may decide without delay on the lawfulness of his detention and order his release if detention is not lawful. So again, we're talking about law here, and once your status is correct, and you have the records, and the records reflect as such, if your detention is not lawful, which 95% of the detentions in the United States are statutory or others, or conducted under some other procedure that is not lawful, then this is also the basis of your claim or your counterclaim. Remember, now, and something else I wanted to mention, for anybody that is locked up that has done a status change, or perhaps they have the right status as a Moorish American or some other indigenous person that is foreign to the jurisdiction of the United States, or someone that has withdrawn their citizenship from the United States, when you do a habeas corpus, and you're doing it as from outside of the jurisdiction, your habeas corpus needs to allege either it needs to be brought under treaty obligations or constitutional obligations. So this is another instrument to look at: the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, as well as the Peace and Friendship Treaty and the United States Constitution, Article 6, that says they have to honor these things. That may be something you want to look at if you're bringing in habeas corpus, because from my thinking, your best shot at a habeas corpus needs to be done uh, on the basis of you not being subject to the jurisdiction. So you don't want to, my opinion, I wouldn't be trying to bring the habeas corpus under United States codes, because I call that the wide path to destruction. I was filing a habeas corpus before, and there were like at least 3 or 4 different ways it could have been filed. And after researching all of them, I found the best one would be to do it as being outside of the jurisdiction, which again means you have to allege a treaty obligation or a constitutional obligation. So look at these instruments. Article 11. No one shall be imprisoned merely on the ground of inability to fulfill a contractual obligation. A very strong one, because everyone in the United States is being imprisoned on the most part because their inability to fulfill a contractual obligation. They're being held as surety against unpaid obligations. So this is another one that you want to bring as part of your mandatory counterclaim. And I also want to say, I'll read a few more of these, but you also have to look at the Declaration of Rights of Indigenous People, your human rights instrument, because there's numerous. You don't have to look at any kind of statutory law or Bill of Rights, because if you're claiming to be outside of the jurisdiction, then you need to bring law that is outside of the jurisdiction. And these protections can be found in numerous instruments. Article 14, Section 2. Everyone charged with a criminal offense shall have the right to be presumed innocent until proven guilty according to law. Doesn't that sound familiar? Now, here's a very important one, and after I go through some of these, I'm going to probably give this video leave. So again, this is Article 14, Section 3. In the determination of any criminal charges against him, everyone shall be entitled to the following minimum guarantees in full equality: to be informed promptly, in detail, in a language which he understands, of the nature and the cause of the charge against him; to have adequate time and facilities for the preparation of his defense; and to communicate with counsel of his own choosing. So this is a big one right here. So when you're standing there and they says, I'm going to assign an attorney to you, you can say, well, that's a violation of my rights under the International Covenant of Civil and Political Rights, Article 14, Section 3, where it says I'm entitled to have adequate time and facilities for preparation of my defense and to communicate with counsel of my own choosing. Another one of the rights afforded in here is to be tried without undue delay. Another one, to examine or have examined the witnesses against him and to obtain the attendance and examination of witnesses on his behalf under the same conditions as witnesses against him. So I know these sound very familiar, don't they? So you don't have to go looking in United States laws if you want to, because these are not rights that are given to you, but they're acknowledged and protected. And this is a way you can safely invoke the same laws that you thought you had under the legal system without being compelled to pull yourself into the jurisdiction. Anyways, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed and got something from these videos.